Technology and food have to be in the top 5 passions for any nerd. I'm Chris Riley, tech advocate for Splunk, Sweet Code contributor, and bad coder turned dev enthusiast. I sit down to eat with techies to talk about modern technologies, careers in tech, and advancement in development practices. My employer does not own or sponsor this podcast. My thoughts are my own, and no guests were drugged or coerced during the recording. This is Developers Eating the World.
All right, Shawn, we are at home base here. I kind of cheated and I invited you to the Splunk office.
Lovely Boulder. Yeah.
So we're actually in Boulder at the new Splunk office. We're doing the Denver Splunk meetup. Invited you to that. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm cheating because I'm traveling all next month and I'm like, God, I got to get a podcast done or I'm in trouble. But Shawn, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Okay. Well, I'm a DevOps consultant. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ReleaseTEAM, which we just had our 20th anniversary last fall. Yeah, thanks. So we go from company to company, helping them with DevOps initiatives. Often we're helping at the tool automation level. So we come in with version control tools. Typically, these days it's Bitbucket, GitHub, and GitLab, and then help them with CI/CD and implementing their environment for them.
How much time do you think you spend just convincing people? Is there a lot of like strategy people time?
It depends customer to customer. Most customers that reach out have already decided to go down this path, and so we're just kind of helping them pick the right, the right procedures, the right policies, the right tools, helping them with culture. That would do a lot more culture than I expected to.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. So that's the type of stuff that we do. I try to keep myself consulting about 80% of the time, which I do a terrible job at. I'm typically consulting 100% of the time.
That's rough.
So
I mean, it's your own practice, so
yeah.
you have to.
But I enjoy it, and I like the customers, and the last couple of years, most of it's been in the Denver area for myself. But we do things all over the world, specifically just Canada and the United States.
So I'm glad that you're running into people who are already opportunistic DevOps. I remember 4 years ago, I spent a lot of time just having my conversations around DevOps. How have you seen the evolution of, so doing this for 20 years, 20 years ago there wasn't DevOps, right? So how have you seen
20
that?
years ago it was build automation.
Right, ARA
came into it. Yeah, exactly, yeah. ALM,
right.
All those old acronyms. But we still do basically the same thing. It's just called DevOps now. It's still build automation, but now it's tying everything all together, breaking down the silos, and just getting the software out, with good, high quality, but in a much faster cadence.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've been noodling about a lot is as more and more, as we've transitioned into kind of the DevOps majority, I've been wondering, okay, so these are the people that, nice seeing you, that were initially fighting DevOps, right? But now, they're embracing it. What was the switch for them? Like, at what point did they go, okay, we got to do this?
Yeah. Well, I think once they start seeing solid results, then they're won over.
And is that results of their peers? Is it results of?
Yeah, pretty much firsthand results. Because you can see your peers succeeding, and you can still be a curmudgeon about it. And a lot of my customers, I still, they're all set to go down this new path or to improve the path that they're already on, but there's still holdouts, and it's focusing on those holdouts and convincing them, trying to bring them up to be champions of the cause is some of the culture stuff that I wasn't really expecting to have to always get into, but every customer has that one person that they love that old tool. They don't want to, I don't want to leave Subversion, or something like that. And
has it been a particular role you found that
it's
is
all over the map?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's always all over the map. It seems to be the people that are been in that role or been in that company for the longest. So you get a team that they might have 3 or 4 people that have been there for a couple years, and then a lot more that have been at that company 10, 15 years.
Right.
And it's from that group that you typically see the curmudgeon, but not always. It's all over the map.
So what are you seeing in terms of application architectures? Are most of your clients kind of still in the day where you have artifacts, you compile, you have binaries, and you're shipping artifacts and binaries? Or are you seeing some of your customers starting to use containers?
So yes. Yes to both. So the customers I'm specifically familiar with, the ones that I go out to or the ones I help some of the consultants with, have been Department of Defense or banking.
Oh, wow.
Recently. And so yes, there's more of you compile, you create an artifact goes through some stages or phases of testing, and then gets promoted to some sort of server or embedded software or something like that.
Right.
But then our more, I guess, commercial customers that are, more web-facing, they are compiling everything into a container and delivering it all at once. So it's yes to the
combination of everything.
It's a combination of them,
which has to be interesting for you because you're like crossing, all aspects. Because also you have the enterprises who have the mainframe and have the modern application, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, well, we still have some customers that are really heavy mainframe users, I guess, or consumers. So, but a lot of our DoD stuff is very embedded. So there is no end system they're really deploying to. They're deploying to a chip that sits on a car that gets installed in a radar system, or some sort of control system on a Navy boat or something, or ship.
Right. So in that case, especially in the government, like they're not fighting for dollars. I mean, they are, but the money's there.
It's a different paradigm.
Yeah,
so,
they're not competing. What is the driver?
Yeah. So the drivers that take all the other benefits of DevOps. So like the core benefit is to better compete with all the competitors out there. But if you're a Navy contract and you already won the contract, you don't necessarily have a competitor. You have a set of requirements that the Navy's asked for, and you need to deliver to those requirements. So they're historically very, very waterfall. But if they move to more of a DevOps thing, they can produce software faster, and they can get the government their deliverable in less time. So gone should be the 6-year contracts to do a new radar facility or something like that, or a new command control center for aircraft carrier. Should be able to produce that in a much shorter time with DevOps practices. Shifting everything left, building your tests in early. You don't wait until a 6-year development effort to start testing your software.
Right.
You start testing your software on day one.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's a DevOps leader out there. His name is Nirmal. He is now, I believe, at Docker, but he was at Booz Allen. And he has articles and talks about his work with the GSA, because you're absolutely right. What the GSA saw is they would award contracts, and they would wait 6 to 12 months to find out it was a failure.
Yes, yeah. Or sometimes much longer, and realize that, hey, we have to start all over. The vendor didn't hit any of our requirements, or they misunderstood the requirements because that first waterfall wasn't until a year out or 2 years out. So bringing everything in, and that helps out a lot on that.
Yeah. So in the event that you encounter one of your holdouts being like leadership in a development organization,
which has happened,
what sort of hard conversations do you have to have with leaders to kind of?
I try to do many small, soft conversations instead of a large, hard conversation. I feel like just like every task, if you break it down to the smallest increment as possible, they're much easier to do. And I find
treat your interactions like DevOps.
Exactly. And the death by a million cuts type thing.
Yeah.
So you just keep plugging the message, and eventually it comes through.
Yeah.
If you're also doing the effort as well as bringing on new tools, setting up processes at the same time, and they're starting to see incremental wins, then that really helps that argument.
Yeah. Do you find that you also get involved in like job recs and recruiting and
Well, I recruit all the time. I'm always looking for new talent for my
yourself?
company.
Yeah.
But no, often.
Well, I know a guy over here.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
There's a
Well,
few,
I definitely
actually.
want to get his card. Yeah. But very, very often we're seen as a trusted advisor when we go into our customer sites, and often we're doing some staff augmentation for them, but it's only short term until they find the right person, and we get involved in helping them find the right person for that.
Interesting.
So
yeah.
we do that work often.
Yeah. I think, I've had some peers in the industry who, people I've known for a long time who've come from like a pure IT managed service provider background, and they, this is a cautionary tale, where they go, hey, this DevOps thing, Chris, you know about this DevOps thing. Should I get into the DevOps consulting business? I'm like, I don't think it works that way. I don't think you just say, I want to add DevOps services to my IT consulting practice. You can't do that. Otherwise, you're just going to feed the beast, and the best you can do there is ITIL. But you can't really do DevOps because it's a much harder job than just going in and saying, here's the tool, go.
Yeah, and there's different definitions of it depending who you're talking to.
I stick with two, but
I try to have one or two. But depending on the industry and who you're talking to, your customer, you have to find the right definition that's going to help them. And sometimes it differs per project inside the same customer.
Yeah.
You might have a lot, because we do a lot of stuff at the enterprise level, and some of their projects are night and day from each other. So a solution that fits for their first project's not going to fit for their second project.
Right.
The tools might all be the same, but the processes might be different, or the processes would be similar, but the tools need to be different because of the type of software they're developing.
Yeah. It's dynamic. I mean, it's not, there's no DevOps shop.
No.
There's no, I'm done.
Exactly.
I did the DevOps, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah, and a lot of our customers, they set up the DevOps dojos and little DevOps teams, and they're fairly successful with them, but they all tend to think everything can be cookie cutter, and it's really not. The ones that succeed most are flexible, and they understand that it's the principles that we need to push out to the teams, and not necessarily, hey, here's your pipeline in a box. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily work for everybody.
Right.
Works perfect for the first team you give it to.
Yeah. Tell me more about the dojo. What do you think about the dojos? I mean, that's kind of a trendy.
It helps with the culture. I guess I'm on the fence with them. I'm not anti the dojos, and I'm not a fanboy.
I guess the risk is it's one of those other things that go, hey, the unicorns are doing it, so let's do it.
So let's do it. Yeah,
right.
It quite possibly can be for some companies, not well thought out. But I don't want to throw them all in the same category, because I've seen some that have worked really well and have helped push the curmudgeons over the line to, maybe this might work for us.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really latched onto was the fact that, the agile stand-ups are very kind of structured. You follow the pattern, you conduct the meetings in a very specific way, and it's all tied.
The ones that are done right,
Okay, the ones that are done right. The ideal ones. But the dojo is intending to build flexibility and to be more about knowledge transfer.
Yes. Yeah. To kind of coach everyone on how to do agile correctly, because I've seen a lot of companies, there are a lot of groups that they implement the daily stand-up, and that's agile for them. They don't do the rest.
Yeah.
And you can't go in there and hey guys, you're not really agile, and what. but you need to break the ice and convince them that you need to do more. There's more to this than that.
Right.
And then I recommend agile coaches to come in and help them out with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So how do you spend your time? I mean, you said you're 100%, helping. How do you spend your time keeping current on like the ecosystem, the tools, the practices, the things that are going well? In my opinion, even more important, the things that people are struggling with.
Yeah. So I read a lot. Of course, I DORA report every year. I read that. All the major DevOps books that come out, I read those. I go to a lot of conferences. I have to be careful because I go to too many conferences, and I try to hit 3 or 4 major ones each year. I think we've probably been at some of the same ones.
Yeah.
The most recent one was DevOps Enterprise Summit last October. Prior to that, I was at CloudBee's DevOps World and Jenkins World.
Okay.
Then I did the JFrog Swamp Up.
I just submitted to speak at Swamp Up.
Oh,
we'll see.
good. Well, hopefully you get good.
I spoke there 1 year, and I'll tell you, that was probably one of my worst talks.
Oh, really?
So we'll see if they accept it.
What was your talk on?
I think I did it on the DevOps market landscape. I think it was, I know what happened. I know what broke in that talk, but you got to have bad ones so that you can have the good ones.
That's how you learn. Yeah. But yeah, I may have actually been in that one. I have to go back and look at
Was it
some
the
of my
Napa
notes.
one? It was Napa.
Well, they were all in Napa until last year. And
Yeah, the next one's in San Fran, right?
Yeah. So this summer was San Fran. The next one's in San Francisco as well. I think, if not San Jose, but one of them moved to San Jose. Maybe CloudBee's.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's the Bay Area.
Yeah. So the other ones were up in Napa. And then the Atlassian conference earlier than that. So I think that's my next one.
I thought you were going to say KubeCon.
No, we were considering going to that, and my co-founder was going to go. We couldn't get a hotel.
Oh wow!
Yeah, well, we waited too long on that one, and I think it was like a month or two out, and still I thought a month or two would have been enough, but couldn't get a hotel at a reasonable rate.
Conference. I mean, 3 years before KubeCon was the Docker cons, but the Docker cons, and I'll just say it, they're not the same.
No, they were fun. I used to go to the Docker cons.
For me, the last nail in the coffin DockerCon where I'm like, okay, it's different now, was the one in Austin.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. I was at that one,
Where every time before they came on the
they had to wear a
stage,
hat.
they did the cowboy hat thing, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm over it.
And right after that conference is when they asked the CEO to leave.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting.
Yeah, it's been quite the ride for Docker. And it's, I think, a great case study on fantastic technology, not the best go-to-market, maybe. Or maybe the wrong time. I mean, shit, I use Docker every other day when I'm just playing around with it.
Oh, yeah, I use Docker exclusively, and all my, all the stuff that we do internally at ReleaseTEAM is all containerized. And we try to spin up environments that are similar to some of our clients, so we can test
Kubernetes kind of landed on everybody with a thud.
Yeah. Well, the first time I heard about Kubernetes was at that Docker convention down in Austin, and or conference. And I was walking around the expo hall, and someone grabbed me and said, "How do you maintain your Docker, your Kubernetes YAML files?" And I'm like, "What's Kubernetes?" And this is like what, going back 4 years maybe,
right?
Something like that. Yeah. And so it was big enough at that time to be involved in the expo at Docker, but I don't think many people knew about it.
No, you had Mesos and you had the brand new Swarm.
Yeah.
Like it was all just new.
Well, that was most of the conference was talking about the Docker Swarm.
That was the whole how they were going to make money.
Yeah.
And that is how they made money ultimately.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Docker desktop play is.
I'm not sure how well that's going. Yeah.
It's interesting what happens in technology in this space. That's why I asked the question, like, how do you keep current?
Yeah.
And conferences, conferences can be a big money and time suck, but they also, there is that kind of, like you said,
it
like
energizes you.
Yeah.
You get excited about it, and then you go back and you research what you heard and find out if there's any meat behind some of this stuff. And
yeah, I think that's the problem. Is I spend most of my conferences in booth duty, which I actually really enjoy booth duty. Yeah. I get to talk to people like you and have ad hoc conversations that are kind of out on the edge. All right, so it's time for buzzword bingo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fun. All right, no ops.
No ops. That is something I'm not a fan of.
I don't know many people who are.
Yeah, operation people are not going away, and to coin a phrase to scare them or to make them concerned is concerning in itself.
Yeah, somebody mentioned, actually it was an engineer here, I think, who's like, well, it's ridiculous because there will always be a quote-unquote operator. Like that's going to exist. Yeah. Even if it's a machine, there is an operator.
Yeah.
So you can't say no.
Exactly.
Like you can't just negate the thing that is always, it's a function that's always going to exist.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when I start talking DevOps at a customer site, a lot of people are concerned about what their role is going to be. When you start saying no ops or serverless, and then there's people that are responsible for those things. Wait a minute, where's my role in this organization?
Yeah, and I think the vendors, I don't think they really, a lot of the unicorn vendors out there don't understand the impact of the words that they use. And they use it to be radical, which is fine.
Yeah. Well, they might also have a different audience. They're not worried about the guy in ops and the NOC that is concerned about
But even in that scenario, the developer is the operator. Even if it's full shift left,
exactly.
The developer is the operator. So it's still not no ops.
Yeah. So
unless you get rid of all computers.
Yeah. So fundamentally, it's a bad term. I was going to say acronym, but I don't think it's an acronym. So.
All right. So one of my favorites, feature flagging.
Okay. I'm a big fan of feature flagging.
Yeah? Why?
Well, because I can deploy as much as I want, whether it's ready or not, and I can just have it, turned off. But how some vendors are calling feature flags is questionable.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. So a lot of the vendors out there have used feature flags as a test in production.
Yes.
And canary release argument, which I'm like, well,
no, I'm not a fan of that argument.
Feature flags benefit much more than just.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to use them for canary releases.
No.
It goes from plan to QA to prod.
Yeah.
It butters across the whole thing. I absolutely agree with you.
But no, if I have multiple components and there's some sort of API mesh between the two, I want to get that into production as soon as possible, whether or not I'm using the newest feature of that, or if I'm backwards compatible and using the older one, and then at some point I can flip the switch and turn them on.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me, I don't want to pick on a particular vendor because I partner with all of them, I don't want anyone to be upset, but someone were like, we're feature flag enabled, or we support feature flags. I'm like, well, how? Feature flags ultimately is just some sort of configuration file somewhere with ones and zeros on it.
Exactly.
And that's all it is. Exactly.
We've dealt with flags forever.
It's not anything new.
And it's a design pattern, and the thing that I want to get across from people is that feature flag does not equal test in production. Because there is kind of that misnomer, and there's so many benefits beyond that.
No, I agree.
All right, last one, observability.
That's a big one.
Is it new?
It's not new.
Okay.
I don't feel it's new. I've heard multiple definitions for it, but basically it's having more visibility into what your applications are doing, what your product is doing. Whether it's a desktop application or something out in the cloud or something embedded, being able to get analytics on it as it's running. That's how I see observability. And
So how does that differ then from monitoring? I think is the big question.
That is a big question, and I'm not sure. It truly differs a whole lot. I think it differs some. Monitoring I see is more real time. Observability covers real time, but it also covers, to me, I think it covers, historical information as well. So if you see something hiccup in your app, it'd be nice to know, was this the first occurrence? Or does this happen, every blue moon going back 4 years or something?
So you see observability more being in the firefight, something breaks area.
Yeah, there's a huge overlap with monitoring at that point.
Yeah, there is.
But monitoring the difference can also be monitoring is more are things working or not? Is the application alive? Where observability is it performing well?
Right.
Or, what is it actually doing? Yes, I can ping the server, but what's the health of the server and all that other stuff.
Right.
Where monitoring,
it's not just metrics.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's more, and I'd say especially in the world of like microservices and distributed tracing, then it becomes quite a bit different because you're talking application layer all the way down to infrastructure.
Yeah, definitely, and but there's still a lot of overlap between monitoring and observability.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's really one or the other.
Yeah, I would agree. The first time I heard the term that it was being pushed more, it was a tool vendor trying to differentiate their monitoring tool from everybody else's. But I think it has grown past that. So.
Yeah, I agree. I like it. Because I think it distinguishes modern application, the challenges that are faced with modern application architectures as opposed to like monolithic, more metric-based architectures. But it is, it's going to evolve in the next year.
So one of the things I'd like to see it mean, but I'm not sure if it means this anywhere, is the observability, whatever. Now I'm tongue-tied. Is built
I've had
in
4 beers.
Yeah, these Diet Pepsis are killing me. They probably are. But
don't worry, I stick to 1 Diet Coke a day, and there was a time where I had like 5 a day, and I got a kidney stone. I'm like, okay,
that will stop it for a while, but then it sneaks back in.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So one of the things I think it should mean is that you've built things into your application or your product that allows you to have more
to be observable.
Exactly. Where monitoring, it's a black box.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. It's
but I'm not sure that's where they're going with it.
It absolutely is. And you have to build with observability in mind.
Yes.
For developers, they're asked to build code with security.
Exactly.
They're asked code to be able to testing. Now they're asked to be able to code with observability monitoring in mind. Like, when's it stop?
I don't think it does. I think we just need to
shift left, man.
Shift left to keep hiring more developers.
That's a big left, capital L. Well, Shawn, thank you so much for coming to the meetup.
Oh, no, you're welcome.
And chatting with me, and hopefully we can chat again soon.
It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Definitely.